Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I'm looking at the 2026 Iowa U.S. Senate race, as on Tuesday, tomorrow, we're going to be getting some pretty clear answers on who the Democratic and Republican candidates are going to be. So in this video, I'm going to break this all down, talk about the two primaries, who is currently favored to win, and what the general election is going to look like. Okay, so first things first, we're going to start on the Democratic side, as the Democratic primary is the more contested of the two. In Iowa, there are two Democrats on the ballot running to be the Democratic Senate nominee, in Josh Turek and in Zach Wahls. Now, the current market odds that you'll see here show Josh Turek with a very heavy favorite to win this race. Despite it roughly a little over a month ago, around April 22nd, Zach Wahls was leading in the odds to be the candidate here. Now Josh Turek has a massive advantage at 97 to 2%. And we can look at this primary as well and look at the polling here. This polling has been very interesting, as pretty much all the polls that have been taken, there haven't been too many, but the ones that have either been on behalf of Josh Turek or on behalf of Zach Wahls' campaign or groups that support Wahls. But most of them have been on behalf of Josh Turek. And obviously the most recent four polls show Josh Turek with a lead over Zach Wahls. Now, again, they are being sponsored by his campaign, so you have to take these numbers with a grain of salt, because typically internal polls are going to make their candidate look a lot better than the other candidate. But in the most recent poll, he is leading over Josh Turek is leading over Zach Wahls by roughly about 21 points, which even in an internal poll, even if he's not leading by 21 points, he's still probably leading if he is up by that much. And 17% of voters still undecided. So it looks like Josh Turek right now is the leader in this primary. Just look at these numbers here. Yes, again, they are internal polling, but Turek's at 52, 53, 41, 48. Zach Wahls' highest vote number since March 26th, his highest vote number has been 31%, outside of that one Bedrock Polling, which is a group that is a local Teamsters group. So Zach Wahls has not gotten as high support as Josh Turek in most of these polls. There is still a good amount of undecided vote left out there, but likely Josh Turek has enough to overall break 50% and ultimately win. It's also not really too surprising when you look at the amount of endorsements behind Josh Turek and the endorsements behind Zach Wahls, who people think are going to win this race. Pete Buttigieg, a possible 2028 presidential candidate, has endorsed Josh Turek. U.S. Senators or former U.S. Senators and Bob Casey, Catherine Cortez Masto, Tammy Duckworth, Ruben Gallego, Tom Harkin, and Maggie Hassan all have endorsed Josh Turek in this race, including Ro Khanna, a representative who's looking at running for president in 2028 as well. So a lot of people, including two past candidates, and Nathan Sage and J.D. Schulten, who at one point were running against Turek for the Senate nomination, they've all endorsed him as well. Zach Wahls does have the endorsement of Elizabeth Warren and former Representative Dave Lobsack, as well as Howard Dean, Patty Judge, and Jason Kander as well. So he does have a good amount of endorsements, but it seems most are coalescing around Josh Turek for this candidacy here. In terms of who I personally have my own rankings as winning the primary, I mean, I think the polling's pretty much spot on in this one. I think Josh Turek's ultimately going to be the Democratic candidate. In terms of how competitive this race is going to be, it's going to be interesting because the markets show a very big gap in favor of Josh Turek. The polling shows Josh Turek leading by a pretty considerable amount as well. So how this ultimately all shakes out, it's going to be interesting to see. It's not going to be an exact comparison because neither one of these candidates has the scandals that Ken Paxton has, but where Ken Paxton defeated John Cornyn by like 28 points in the runoff election, I could see something similar happening here, potentially. Maybe like a 65-35 win for Turek over Zach Wahls, or maybe a 60-40 type win could be something that might happen here. But I think Josh Turek is the favorite heading into election night, and I would expect him to win the primary once all the votes are all counted. On the Republican side, this one shouldn't really take too long as well. This is an open race now that Joni Ernst, the Republican incumbent, is retiring, not running for re-election. Ashley Hinson, the U.S. representative from the 2nd District, the district that's up here in this part of Iowa. Ashley Hinson is the overwhelming favorite to be the Republican nominee, 99% or even 100% chance to win the primary. No real surprise there on Kalshi, and on Polymarket, same thing, 100% chance to win here. In terms of the polling, They don't even have any polling from this race. That's how like pretty much lopsided that it's been for Hinson versus Jim Carlin. We can look at it on the Republican side if you want to see the polling here, but the only poll was taken from back actually pretty recently, May 27th through 28th, so literally just a few days ago, and it was from JMC, and Ashley Hinson's leading 58-19 over Jim Carlin, with 23% undecided. So we actually did have a very recent poll, but even still, Ashley Hinson is going to win this primary and win it by a very considerable amount. She has a ton of money on hand at $7.2 million. She also has the endorsements of several top Republicans, including the President of the United States, Donald Trump, including Trump administration officials, Markwayne Mullin, Terry Branstad, and several U.S. senators across the state, including Joni Ernst and fellow Iowa Republican Senator Chuck Grassley as well, and the Senate Majority Leader John Thune and Senator Tim Scott as well, who are the main Republicans who are trying to get more Republican senators elected. So she also has the endorsement of her fellow Iowa representatives in Zach Nunn and Marionette Miller Meeks as well. So clearly, Ashley Hinson has his Republican primary locked up. Not really too much of a surprise here. We're looking at a matchup of Ashley Hinson versus Josh Turek for the general election. As for the general and where things begin, this is where things get interesting because there's not really a lot of whole consensus on this race. Cook Political Report, Saddle Crystal Ball, and Inside Elections have the race listed as likely Republican. Rachel White House has it as tilt Republican, and then Real Clear Politics and The Economist has it as a toss-up. It's going to be interesting because Iowa is typically a state that votes pretty solidly Republican now, especially at the presidential level. It voted for Donald Trump in 2024 by 13 points, and even in 2020, where Joe Biden won the election, Trump still won the state by 8.2%. So for the Democrats to actually win the Iowa Senate race, they're going to need a very considerable movement back towards the Democrats in Iowa that hasn't really been there since 2016. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that ultimately goes. On the Senate side, it has been a little bit more competitive. Joni Ernst's 2020 Senate race, she only won by 6.5%, so about another, 1.7 points down of what Trump won it by. So it was still a likely Republican win, but it was more competitive in that race. Chuck Grassley won his election by 12.2. The Democrats' main optimism in Iowa is going to come not from the 2022 governor's race, where Kim Reynolds won it by 18.5%, but from the 2018 governor's race, where she defeated the Democrat candidate by 2.7% in an election year that was Donald Trump's midterm election in his first term. And this is going to be the most probably comparable midterm type of election to 2026, as it's also a midterm election during President Trump's term as president. So the governor's race with Rob Sand is looking to be very competitive, and one that Rob Sand may even be able to pull out the victory. And what the Democrats are hoping in Iowa, essentially, is Rob Sand's performance in the Iowa governor's race may be enough down ballot to potentially drag the Senate race into that competitiveness as well. Is it going to end up happening? Not too sure, because the polling we have thus far is very scarce. There's only been 3 polls. They are from Change Research, which is a Democratic-affiliated pollster, GQR, which is a Democratic-affiliated pollster on behalf of Josh Turek's campaign, and Echelon Insights, which is a Republican poll. So we don't have any non-affiliated polls yet in this race, and they show different things here. Turek versus Hinson in the Republican poll, Turek leads by 1, but then in the Democratic Turek poll, Hinson leads by 4. In the Change Research Democratic poll, Hinson leads by 3. So the numbers are always kind of all over the place here. There's still about 10% of the vote undecided if you average out the 3. And polling in Iowa is almost historically very wonky and kind of hard to keep an eye out for. The Ian Seltzer poll in 2024 showed it a very close race that Kamala Harris, I think, was even favored in, and then Donald Trump wins it by 13 points. So the polling in Iowa is always very, very nuts here. In terms of what Iowa, I think, represents at the general election level, I would feel relatively confident putting it in the toss-up category, which is now anything that I think is 5 points or under would be considered a lean win for the Republicans or the Democrats. I would start Iowa out as I think it falls under 5 points, very narrowly, but I think it falls under 5 by like 4.5%. But then I think from there, I think we see Ashley Hinson win Iowa and keep it a Republican Senate race. It's possible it goes red at the Senate level, with even the governor's race potentially going Democratic. But I think Iowa on the Senate seat is going to remain Republican. It'll be competitive. I think 2018 is kind of a decent indicator of how it might go. But I think in the general election, Republicans will end up holding it in a not super comfortable margin, but a comfortable enough margin. I don't think it's going to fall under like 2 points or anything like that. Not in the Senate race. I think Republicans should still hold it by around 4.5 to 5 points. In terms of this video, though, that's where I have things for Turek versus Wahls. I think Turek will advance. Hinson will advance with the Republicans. And then it'll end up a competitive showdown. I think Hinson will win by about 4.5%. That is all I have for you in today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe if you did. Stay tuned as I have new videos coming out every single day that you're not going to want to miss at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. For now, thank you so much for watching. Again, please remember to hit like and subscribe, and hope to see you in a future video.